officially on the calendar. President Biden is expected to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Geneva, Switzerland next month. Joining us to discuss what to expect from this in-person meeting is Pennsylvania Congressman and member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Scott Perry, and New York Congressman Lee Zeldin, who's also on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be with you.
All right, I want to start with both of you. For 4 years, all we heard from the media was about Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia. Trump actually stood up to Putin on several fronts. He's arms sales to Ukraine, blocking the Russia-Germany pipeline. Now Biden's actually going to meet with Putin this summer and he's already gone ahead with the pipeline. So Congressman Zeldin, I want to start with you. What do you, I mean, it was amazing. The narrative for 4 years was Trump was Putin's puppet, and now you have Biden in his first act before the meeting giving in on the pipeline.
Yeah, you're right on Nord Stream 2, and that's a great point. And also remember when Biden came into office, a change of policy on the New START treaty. And it was President Trump taking the tough stance of wanting to renegotiate this arms deal with regards to a nuclear arsenal in both countries. And we're saying, well, hey, what about verification? What about China? And President Biden comes in and immediately goes in the opposite direction. Putin was thrilled. And you just pointed out Nord Stream 2, another important example. I remember when President Trump was going through 2020 and he was getting a hard time, they were saying that he was briefed about how Russia placed bounties on U.S. service members in Afghanistan. I received the intelligence at the highest levels of the government, right up to the level of raw intelligence that President Trump had access to. And I realized why he never actually was briefed on it by that career CIA briefer was because it was heavily disputed. Now we get the Daily Beast and other left of center media outlets all correcting themselves. But at that time, they were using it to try to take down Donald Trump. So those are three examples of too many.
Yeah. We hope to be joined by Congressman Perry in a minute. We are having a few technical difficulties, but I want to switch gears a little bit, Congressman Zeldin, to talk to the Middle East. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today, and Netanyahu urged Blinken for the U.S. not to return to the Iran nuclear deal, something Biden has been talking about doing. If Biden does choose to do this, what message does that send to one of our biggest allies in the Middle East?
Well, first off, Israel should have a seat at that table. Why is it that you have this P5+1 and none of these countries actually in the region are participating other than Iran? And then you have people within the Biden administration who they're advocating for President Biden to re-enter the United States to the Iran nuclear deal as is. They want to see us unilaterally relinquishing, rescinding sanctions in a show of good faith. They want to apologize for 4 years of a maximum pressure show of strength towards Iran that was effectively working. The same people who were giving President Trump a hard time for taking Qasem Soleimani off of the battlefield. And it sends a wrong message on so many different levels when you assume a position of weakness, that you allow Iran to cross all different kinds of what should be red lines, and there are no consequences. Iran will just continue to press further. And you cannot get me to agree that Iran is looking for this nuclear capability for great humanitarian reasons, to be great world actors. This is the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. They've engaged in so much bad behavior. The ICBMs are not for Israel. It's intercontinental ballistic missiles. It's for the United States, which Iran calls the Great Satan. They chant death to America on their holidays, on the streets, and in their parliament. So I think that President Biden needs to be much tougher towards Iran. And there's a lot for him to learn by what President Trump did right towards Iran, and there's a lot for him to learn about what President Obama did wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Congressman Perry, I see that we have you now. Glad we were able to get you. But as we have Secretary Blinken talking to Netanyahu, more than 500 Biden campaign and Democratic staffers have written a letter urging that Biden take a harder line on Israel and give more support to Palestinians. If President Biden listens to them, what does this mean for our relationship with Israel?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, the future governor of New York is correct. What that's a signal of is that the squad is actually in control. It's Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC. They're really running the foreign policy towards Israel. And what you're seeing is a dramatic shift where even though we disagree on many things as Republicans and Democrats, in the past, we could all agree that our ally, the only democracy in the region, Israel, needs to be held up by the United States of America. And when I say held up, needs to be lifted up and supported. And what we're seeing now is a dramatic shift. And there's no crossing the lines here. The Democrat Party has really abandoned its support for Israel, and you're seeing it front and center happening right in front of your face right now. That's exactly where we are.
You know, Congressman Perry, when President Biden did his press conference the other day, he took a shot at President Trump by almost talking about how they're bringing the Palestinians back into the fold as if that was a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing a terrorist organization, governed by a terrorist organization in Hamas, back into the fold. Let's remind everybody that Israel continues to respond to the attacks from Hamas, which is governing in that location, and sending rockets into Israel, hitting innocent targets, hitting innocent people without any military value whatsoever. Israel continues to respond. I'm not sure why America wants to bring Palestinians back into the fold if that's how they're going to act. They're proactively attacking their neighbor. This is not something America should be signaling that we're willing to do. We shouldn't be negotiating with terrorists, and we shouldn't be assisting terrorists.
Agreed. Congressman Zeldin, I want to play you a quick clip from a comedian who's actually a surrogate of Bernie Sanders and Rashida Tlaib.
Hey, everybody, it's Ahmed. This is a message to all the activists and leaders out there that are condemning anti-Semitism and condemning terrorism right now. Stop it. Stop. You are not helping, all right? You are playing their games. It's a distraction. We've been condemning anti-Semitism for 20, 30, 40 years. If they didn't believe us by now, stop it. Stop it. Just stop it. It doesn't help.
I guess he should probably stick to joke telling because that was pretty pathetic. Congressman Zeldin, we got about 30 seconds left. Let me ask you, this rise in anti-Semitism that we're seeing, that seems to fly in the face, or what that gentleman was saying actually seems to fuel it.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to have to go see his comedy show. That was not a very good pitch for his material or talent or character. And you're seeing a lot of that in the United States. People inside of politics and out of politics, they're coming across as Hamas sympathizers. And they're contributing to a moment in time, a situation where you have a violent anti-Semitic attack going on day in, day out from coast to coast. He should be passionately, unequivocally, singularly, emphatically, forcefully going after anti-Semitism to identify, confront it, and crush it. Anyone out there who's listening who agrees with that guy should be listening to this newscast instead and have a change of heart.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for your insight into these important issues. Great to see you, and I hope to have you back soon.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.